Let's face it, life doesn't always play by the rules. You try to follow all the advice, chase all the right paths, and yet you end up stuck, overwhelmed, or burned out. So, what if I told you there's a better way? A way that doesn't require waiting for some perfect moment or trying to force your life into some neat, idealistic box. What if the key to success wasn't in theory, but in getting real, pragmatic to be exact? Yes, I'm talking about pragmatism. It's not about what sounds good or what looks pretty on paper. It's about making decisions that actually work in the here and now. So, if you're tired of overthinking, of getting caught in the cycle of what-ifs and maybe-laters, stick around, because I'm going to show you how to bring pragmatism into your everyday life, and trust me, it's going to change the way you think about everything. No fluff, no sugarcoating, just straight-up, practical advice that you can actually use. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to stop overcomplicating your life and start living smarter. Let's dive in. Number 1. The 5-minute decision rule. Stop overthinking. You know what's worse than making a decision? Overthinking it. Let's be real for a second. How many times have you spent hours, days, even weeks agonizing over a choice that, in the grand scheme of things, probably didn't matter that much? I'm talking about those moments when you can't decide whether to eat pizza or sushi, or whether to take that job offer that's been on your mind for ages. Now, you might be thinking, but I need time to think things through, right? Well, yes, but here's the twist. Overthinking isn't helping. In fact, it's making things worse. You know the type, the person who gets stuck in an endless loop of what if? Should I? Maybe? It's like being on a treadmill where the only thing you're moving is your own anxiety. We've all been there. You're trying to decide if you should take the leap on a new opportunity, but your mind runs 1,000 scenarios. What if I fail? What if I regret it? And before you know it, the decision has become this massive burden instead of a simple choice. It's exhausting, right? Here's the thing. What if I told you that there's a way to break this cycle and make decisions faster, with more confidence? It's called the 5-minute decision rule. And no, it doesn't mean you make rash, impulsive choices that you regret 5 minutes later. Trust me on this. It's all about giving yourself just 5 minutes to make a decision, and that's it. Here's why it works. When you give yourself too much time to think, your mind starts spiraling into doubt and second-guessing. But with 5 minutes, you force yourself to cut through all that noise and focus on what really matters. You get to trust your gut and rely on your instincts, not just overanalyze every option. Okay, I know this might sound like a recipe for disaster, but hear me out. Let me give you a real example. I remember the time I was offered a new job. It was a huge opportunity, but I kept dragging my feet on making the decision. I thought about the pros and cons over and over until it was driving me crazy. Then, one day, I decided to try the 5-minute decision rule. I sat down, set a timer and told myself, 5 minutes, just 5 minutes to decide if I'm in or out. After a few minutes of deep breathing, I realized that my hesitation wasn't about the job itself. It was about my fear of change. But the job was a great fit, and deep down, I knew I'd regret it if I didn't take the leap. So, I made the decision. And guess what? I've never looked back. Here's the magic. That simple shift in mindset gave me control. It wasn't about being reckless. It was about trusting myself enough to make a choice and stick with it. No more overthinking, no more regrets. I stopped waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect decision. I just made it and moved on. And let me tell you, this is about more than just being efficient. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your mental energy. When you stop overthinking, you stop giving your anxiety the power to run your life. You create room for clarity and calm. You reclaim your time. So, next time you find yourself stuck in decision paralysis, remember, the 5-minute decision rule is your ticket to freedom. Trust yourself, take the leap, and stop letting hesitation keep you from moving forward. Number 2, practical minimalism. Less is always more. Imagine living in a world where less actually means more. It sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? I mean, we've all been conditioned to believe that the more stuff we have, the more successful or fulfilled we'll be. But what if I told you that having less can actually bring you more? More peace, more focus, and yes, more happiness. Now, you might be thinking, but I can't just get rid of my things. What about all the stuff I've worked hard to accumulate? Trust me, I get it. But stick with me for a second, and let's explore how practical minimalism can truly transform your life. You know the type, the person who can't walk into a room without tripping over piles of clothes, books, gadgets, and random knickknacks. We've all been there. You might even be nodding along because your own home feels like a cluttered battleground, where every flat surface has something sitting on it. And while those things may have seemed important at one point, they're just taking up space now, physically and mentally. The clutter piles up, and so does the stress. But here's where minimalism comes in to shake things up. What if instead of constantly adding more stuff to your life, you started getting rid of the things that no longer serve you? I'm talking about the pile of old clothes that you haven't worn in years, the kitchen gadgets that seemed necessary but never got used, or that drawer of random receipts you'll never look at again. Practical minimalism isn't about living like a monk in a bare room. It's about curating your life so that the things you own truly add value. And here's the kicker. The less you have, the more room you create for what really matters. I know, it sounds a little extreme, but hear me out. Let me give you a personal example. A few months ago, I decided to give this less is more approach a real try. I started by tackling my closet. There was stuff in there I hadn't worn in ages, but I kept telling myself, maybe one day. We've all said that, right? Well, I finally took the plunge and got rid of anything that didn't bring me joy or serve a purpose. What happened next? I actually felt lighter, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And that wasn't even the best part. I started to notice that the more space I created in my closet, the more I had in my mind. No more stressing about what to wear, because everything was something I truly loved. And it wasn't just the clothes. My entire mindset shifted. Now, let's be real for a second. It's not easy. You'll want to hold on to things, thinking that maybe, just maybe, you'll need them one day. But what happens when you realize that those things are just weighing you down, both physically and mentally? This is about more than just cleaning up your space. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about owning your environment instead of letting your environment control you. And here's the most empowering part. When you stop overloading your life with stuff, you make room for the things that truly matter, your passions, your relationships, your peace of mind. So, next time you look around and see clutter taking over your life, remember, less really is more. Reclaim your space, reclaim your peace, and let go of what's holding you back. You'll be amazed at how freeing it feels, and who knows, you might just find that the less you have, the more you actually gain. Number 3, unplug to reconnect. The technology fast. What if I told you that your phone, the very device that's supposed to keep you connected, might actually be keeping you disconnected from the things that matter most? It sounds wild, right? I mean, we're told that we need to be plugged in 24/7, to check every notification, to never miss an update. But what if, just for a little while, you unplugged completely? Yes, I'm talking about a full-on digital detox, a technology fast. Now, you might be thinking, How in the world am I supposed to survive without my phone for even a day? Trust me, it's not as impossible as it sounds. In fact, it might just be the best decision you make all year. You know the type, the person who's always scrolling, checking their email, replying to texts, or going down a YouTube rabbit hole at 2 a.m. We've all been there. That constant buzzing, the pinging notifications. It's like we're always tethered to the digital world, even when we're physically present in the real one. And here's the kicker. That sense of connection we get from technology can actually leave us feeling more isolated than ever. We're so plugged in that we forget how to actually connect with ourselves, with the people around us, with life. Sound familiar? So here's the twist. What if, instead of allowing technology to control us, we took back the reins? Imagine this. You wake up in the morning and don't check your phone for the first hour. You're not immediately scrolling through Instagram, checking work emails or catching up on news. You're just present. Sounds impossible, right? But here's the thing. Doing a technology fast isn't about rejecting tech altogether. It's about creating intentional space for your mind to breathe. It's about stepping away from the noise and letting your brain reset. And guess what? It's more powerful than you think. Let me tell you about the time I tried this. A few months ago, I decided to take a 48-hour break from all things tech. No phone, no laptop, no social media, just complete silence from the digital world. At first, I'll admit, it felt a bit like withdrawal. I found myself reaching for my phone out of habit, only to remind myself, nope, no tech today. But after a few hours, something incredible happened. I started to feel lighter. My mind wasn't constantly buzzing with incoming messages or worries about what was going on in the virtual world. Instead, I was here, in the moment. I found myself engaging more deeply with the people around me, having real conversations, and even rediscovering hobbies I had forgotten about. It was like pressing the reset button on my life. Here's the best part. The benefits weren't just about feeling less stressed, although that was huge. It was about reclaiming my space, my mental space, my emotional space. The constant flow of information had been weighing me down, and when I unplugged, I realized just how much unnecessary clutter was in my head. And that's the thing about a technology fast. It's not just about detoxing from screens. It's about reconnecting with yourself, your thoughts, your priorities, your peace. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself, what if I just unplug for a bit? What if I turned off the notifications, put down the phone, and allowed myself the time to just be? This isn't about rejecting progress or living in the past. It's about creating space for real connections, for self-reflection, and for clarity. When you reclaim your time from the digital world, you reclaim your peace. You don't need to be always on to be alive. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are worth more than any notification that can wait. Number 4, the 80-20 work-life hack. Prioritize like a pragmatist. What if I told you that you could achieve more in life by doing less? Sounds a little crazy, right? After all, we've all been taught that success comes from working harder, grinding longer hours, and never taking a break. But here's the thing. It's not about working more. It's about working smarter. Enter the 80-20 rule, or as I like to call it, the work-life hack. Trust me, it's not just for business moguls and productivity experts. It's for you too. Now, you might be thinking, how on earth can I get more done with less effort? Well, that's exactly what I'm about to show you. You know the type, the one who's always hustling, always stressed, juggling a million things at once. We've all been there. You're working overtime, trying to keep up with a never-ending to-do list, and still feeling like you're falling behind. It's exhausting, right? We're so used to pushing ourselves to the limit that we forget to ask the most important question: what's actually moving the needle? And that's where the 80-20 rule comes in, focusing on the 20% of tasks that will give you 80% of the results. It sounds deceptively simple, but when you apply it, it's a game changer. So, what exactly is the 80-20 rule? It's the idea that not all tasks are created equal. In fact, a small fraction of what you do leads to the majority of your success. This isn't some abstract concept. It's based on real-world observations. Think about it. You probably spend hours answering emails, scrolling through social media, or attending meetings that don't really move the needle in your life. But then, there are those tasks, the ones that truly matter, the ones that take less time but make a huge impact. Whether it's a big work project, a personal goal, or even spending quality time with loved ones, these are the moments that actually move the needle. Let me paint you a picture from my own life. A while back, I was struggling to balance work, personal projects, and family time. I was always busy but didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, so I took a step back and asked myself, what's truly making a difference? I realized that spending hours on small tasks was eating up my energy, and I wasn't focusing on the things that mattered most. I started applying the 80-20 rule. I focused on the few projects that had the biggest impact and started saying no to the things that didn't move the needle. The result? I got more done in less time and felt less stressed. And you know what? I started making time for what truly mattered: my relationships, my health, and my passions. This is where the real power of the 80-20 rule lies. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your focus. It's about being intentional with where you put your effort so that you're not just busy, you're productive. And let's be real. How many times have you spent hours working on something that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things? We've all been there, and it's time to break that cycle. By prioritizing the few things that matter most, you create space for the rest of your life to thrive. So, here's your takeaway. Stop overloading yourself with tasks that drain you and start focusing on what actually matters. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what counts. And when you do that, you'll not only achieve more, but you'll also find a sense of balance and fulfillment that's been missing for too long. Your space, your peace, and your dignity matter more than the constant hustle. Prioritize like a pragmatist and watch how your life transforms. Number 5. The controversial self-help rejection. Stop seeking motivation. What if I told you that chasing motivation is actually holding you back? Yeah, I know it sounds like sacrilege, especially in a world where every podcast, book, and influencer seems to say, just find your motivation and everything will fall into place. But here's the thing, motivation is overrated. In fact, it's often a trap that keeps you stuck in the cycle of waiting for the perfect moment. Now I know what you're thinking. How can you possibly say that? We need motivation. Trust me, hear me out on this one. You know the type, the one who waits for the perfect moment to start. You've probably been there too. You've got this idea, this dream, but it feels like every time you sit down to get to work, you're waiting for a surge of motivation to kick in. You tell yourself, once I feel that spark, I'll get started. But guess what? That spark never comes. And day after day you find yourself putting things off, telling yourself, I just need to be more motivated. It's frustrating, right? Because the truth is, motivation doesn't magically appear on a schedule. It's fickle. It comes and goes. But there's a much more reliable strategy to get things done: discipline. Here's the catch. Motivation isn't a consistent force. It's like waiting for the perfect wave to surf, but the waves are unpredictable. Some days you'll feel like you can take on the world. Other days you won't even want to get out of bed. But here's the secret no one tells you. It's not about waiting for motivation. It's about creating the structure that forces you to show up, no matter what. Discipline is the key. And here's the kicker. Once you show up, motivation often finds you in the process. Sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But trust me, it works. Let me give you a real-world example. A few months ago, I was struggling with a big project. I had tons of ideas, but I couldn't find the motivation to actually sit down and work on it. Every day I told myself, tomorrow I'll feel more motivated. I'll get started then. But nothing happened. I was stuck. So I made a shift. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, I committed to showing up every day at a set time to work, even if I didn't feel like it. The first few days, total struggle. I wasn't feeling motivated, I was just showing up. But something magical happened after a few days of forcing myself to work. I started feeling the momentum build. The motivation came in small bursts, but it was way more sustainable because I'd already created the habit of doing the work. Here's the thing, the more you chase motivation, the more you get stuck in this endless loop of waiting. And waiting for motivation is just another way of avoiding the work that needs to be done. It's a way of giving yourself permission to procrastinate. But by rejecting this need for motivation, you free yourself from the pressure of waiting for some magical feeling to arrive. Instead, you reclaim control over your actions. You decide when to show up, and in doing so, you create the momentum that motivation can't provide on its own. So, here's your takeaway. Stop waiting for motivation to magically hit you. Start showing up and doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is your secret weapon, and once you stop depending on motivation, you'll realize you've been holding the power all along. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are not dependent on waiting for the right time. They come from your ability to make things happen on your terms. Number 6, fail fast, fail often, embrace the power of quick failure. Let's get one thing straight. Failure is not the enemy. In fact, it's your secret weapon. Yes, you heard me right. Failure is the fastest way to success. And here's the twist. The quicker you fail, the quicker you learn. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, this sounds like one of those motivational speeches that doesn't get real, let me show you why it's true. We've all been there, right? You're working on something. Could be a project, a new skill, or even just figuring out how to make life work. And you hit a wall. You try to avoid that failure like the plague, thinking maybe if you hold off long enough, you'll get it perfect. But then months go by and you're still stuck, trying to make everything perfect and never really moving forward. Sound familiar? It's a trap. The pressure to be perfect before you even try is the real killer of progress. Here's the reality. The best people, the most successful people, aren't afraid to fail. They fail early, they fail often, and they fail fast. Why? Because with each failure, you get a clearer picture of what works and what doesn't. It's like trimming the fat. The quicker you fail, the quicker you get to the good stuff. You stop wasting time on what doesn't matter and focus on what actually gets results. Let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I started a project. I spent weeks, maybe even months, perfecting every detail. I obsessed over getting it just right, only to have it flop miserably when it finally went live. I was devastated. But guess what? I learned more in that first failure than I did in all the planning before. I saw exactly where I went wrong, adjusted, and went back at it. And you know what? The next version was 1,000 times better. Not because I avoided failure, but because I embraced it head-on. I learned faster by failing sooner. The beauty of quick failure is that it frees you from the stress of perfection. You stop holding yourself back, overthinking every decision, and wondering if you're making the right move. Instead, you're constantly refining, constantly learning and constantly improving. This is about taking ownership of your journey and not being afraid to make mistakes along the way. It's about understanding that failure doesn't define you, it refines you. So here's the challenge. Fail fast. Fail often. Stop waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal outcome. Just jump in, mess up, learn, and do it better the next time. This isn't about being reckless. It's about being real. It's about understanding that each failure brings you closer to the success you're aiming for. Don't shy away from it. Own it. Your growth, your success, and your confidence will thank you for it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video gave you some fresh insights into how you can apply pragmatism in your everyday life. If you found this valuable, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. If you know someone who could benefit from a more practical, grounded approach to life, share this video with them. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know how you incorporate pragmatism into your own life, or share any personal experiences you've had. Let's create a space where we can all learn from each other. Remember, life doesn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. Keep it simple, stay practical, and embrace what truly works for you. Until next time, keep living with purpose and staying true to what matters most.